Okay, we are on page 2. Pull it up for everybody to see. Here we are. Okay, so yesterday we learned the Gemara, which told us the source for this idea of Lechem Mishne of having 2 Challahs. And the source is the story of the man. When Hashem gave the man in the desert, on Friday, the Jews got a double portion. They came to Moshe Rabbeinu and they asked, what's this all about? And Moshe Rabbeinu told them, this is because on Shabbos, Hashem is not going to drop the man, and therefore we have double portion today. And that's why we have 2 Challahs today. Right? And we learned that it's a mitzvah. But then I want you to go back to page 1. We're going to look at a certain line in the Gemara in Hebrew, and we're going to see 2 different ways of reading the story in the Hebrew, and the 2 ways of reading the story is going to change the halacha. So we need to put on our thinking caps. This is going to be a little Gemara thinking. Okay, you ready for it? A little bit of a pilpul, but it's going to be very interesting when we see it. It's going to be very enjoyable when it clicks. Ready? So let's see. On the bottom of page 1, the last paragraph, follow along in the Hebrew because it's very important to see the words. Ready? Rabbi Zeda have a batza akula sherosa. Rabbi Zeda would break all the bread. Right? He has 2 challahs in front of him, and he would break all the bread. Amale Ravina la Ravashi. Ravina told Ravashi, "Va'mechzik ravasana." It seems like you are over hungry. It seems the way Rabbi Zeda acted by breaking literally means he broke the whole bread. Yeah. Breaking the whole bread, says Ravina to Ravashi, seems like you're being overly hungry. It's not nice. Eating politely take a little bit of time. Don't take all of it. And the Gemara answered, because he doesn't do that every day, it doesn't look so bad. But these are the key things right here, this conversation. Rabbi Zeda would break all the bread, and Ravina says, that looks like you're being too hungry. Right? Now, understanding, what does this mean, breaking all the bread? What does it mean that he broke all the bread? Understanding what that means changes what I have to do with the 2 challahs when I get them. Okay? So what do you think he means when he says that Ravina broke all the bread? Rabbi Zeda broke all the bread. What does that mean? Broke all the bread, what does that mean? Both challahs? You think it means both challahs? Yeah? Let's see. So let's go back now to page 2 and look at Rashi. See what it says. Rashi l'Shabbos Shom. This is Rashi on the Gemara and Shabbos. This is Rashi on that Gemara we just learned. So Rashi says like this. First it says, the Gemara says l'ftzoya. The Gemara says a person has to break bread on 2 loaves. Says Rashi, birchas hamoitzi, the bracha of hamoitzi. So what does it mean to break bread on 2 loaves, says Rashi? Not that you actually have to break both breads. What does it mean? To have 2 and you make the bracha hamoitzi. So according to Rashi, what's the obligation of Lechem Mishne, the obligation to have 2 loaves of bread? Not that you actually have to break both breads, but what do you have to do? Hold 2 of them when you make the bracha hamoitzi. Yeah, let's see, clear. Says Rashi, nakatarti, you take 2 breads, he holds 2 loaves of bread in his hand and makes that bracha, which by the way is important. Some people put their hands on 2 loaves of bread. The real way to do it is to lift them both up, to hold both loaves of bread in your hand. Hold both challahs. Okay? And the Gemara said, how do we know that it's talking about holding both loaves, holding both bread and make the bracha? Because Loktuksiv, the pasuk says they gathered 2 portions. Not that they ate 2 portions, but they gathered 2 portions. So I can do the same thing. When I make the bracha, I gather 2 portions. I hold 2 loaves of bread. Yeah? But now here's the key. Remember the words were, the words were that Rabbi Zeda would break all the bread. So you guys said that breaking all the bread means he would break both loaves. But let's see what Rashi says. He broke all the bread. Perusa gedayla. He would take a big portion. The dailoi ba la'isa soda. And it would be enough in that chunk that he broke off for the whole meal. So Rashi says, what does it mean that he broke all the bread? It doesn't mean that he broke both breads, both challahs. It means that when he cut the challah, he cut it in such a way that in the first cut, he had enough for the whole meal. Which means, how many loaves of bread did he cut according to Rashi? Only 1. As long as that 1 had enough for the whole loaf, for the whole meal. So let's say he was hoping to have, that much bread. So he cut off that much from the loaf. So now that means according to Rashi, right now from Rashi, what do I have to do by Lechem Mishne? I have to hold 2 breads to make the bracha. But how many do I actually have to cut? Only 1. But as long as the 1 has enough for the whole meal. Clear? So you guys were saying that Batzak Kol Shirasa, breaking all the bread means he would break both challahs. I'm actually saying, no, that's not what it means. What it means is he would hold both challahs by the hamaitzi, because the pasuk said they would gather 2 double portion. So he's gathering 2 loaves of bread to make the bracha. But then when you actually cut, you only cut 1 of them, but you cut enough for the whole meal. Clear? Yeah. That's Rashi. But then the Rashba says no. And the Rashba goes like you people, like you guys. You ever heard of the Rashba? Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet. He was a scholar, Rishon, that lived in Spain. One of the early Sephardic scholars, leading Sephardic thinkers. Very, very famous and amazing man. Just tell you a little bit about him. Shlomo ben Aderet was a Rosh Hashiva. Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet. He's known as the Rashba, right? Reish Shin Beis Aleph stands for Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet. And he was a rabbi, answer halacha questions. He was a Rosh Hashiva. He would give a class in the yeshiva. And so he'd give a class every day for an hour. He would write his chidushim, tens of volumes, I don't know how many volumes, but big set of books called Chidushi Rashba. The Rashba is chidushim on Gemara. And then he wrote Shuvot. You know what Shuvot are? Responsa. People would email him questions and he would write long answers to explain what the halacha is. It's called Shuvot. Letters. And because all over the world, people would be sending him letters of complicated halachic questions and complicated philosophy questions also. And he would write them up and send them out. Also very, very big set of books. And he would take a walk for a day for an hour. So this is an example that we would use as an example. This is a famous example of what's called Hatzlacha Bizman. Which means to have success in time. What does it mean to have success in time? It's a very busy schedule. He's a rabbi, he's leading a school, writing responsa, writing his chidushim. How does he manage all this? So the explanation is, and this is something we learned from the Rashba very famously, so everything you're doing, be fully in it. Right now, you're taking a walk, then focus on your walk. Right now, you're teaching, be focused on the teaching. Right now, you're studying, be focused on the studying. If every time you're doing something, you're thinking about the next thing you're going to do, then everything takes much more time because you're constantly trying to catch up. But if you focus and be in the moment of what you're doing, and everything else doesn't matter, because right now I'm focused on doing this, then you'll be successful in everything you do. And every moment you do is going to be actually productive because you're focused just on this. This was the Rashba was an example of this. And that's why he was able to have all these jobs and write all this stuff and give all these classes and still take a walk every day for an hour. A walk to be healthy. This is the Rashba. So the Rashba writes like this, and he disagrees with Rashi, and he agrees with you guys about what it means that Rabbi Zera would break all the bread. So let's see how the Rashba says it. Rabbi Zera batza akula shirusa. Rabbi Zera would break all the bread. Pirush Rashi explained chaticha gedola, that Rabbi Zera would break off from one challah a big piece of bread, sheyeshba, that there is in that piece of bread, die enough l'kula shirusa for the whole meal. He said the same thing in brachas. But the Rashba says, I don't like this explanation in the Gemara, says the Rashba. Why? It doesn't fit with the Gemara's flow. The Gemara's flow is you're holding 2 loaves of bread, and then you break all the bread. It seems to be reading, like you said, the simple reading seems to mean he broke both pieces of bread. And that's why, says the Rashba, that's why the Ravina said, it looks like you're acting overly starving. You're taking off every single piece. But taking off enough for the whole meal is actually a good thing. And he quotes a Gemara somewhere, anybody who cuts off a big piece of bread for the meal, ayin yafa, is a good thing. The Gemara says elsewhere, it's a proper thing to do, to prepare at the beginning of the meal for everything you're going to eat. So why is Ravina saying, according to Rashi, what Rabbi Zera is breaking off the whole for the whole meal means he took one piece, but enough for the whole meal. And Rabbi Zera says, Ravina said, it looks like you're acting starving. Why is that a problem? The Gemara says that when you take off your piece of bread, it's a good thing to take off for the whole meal. So why is Ravina thinking that it's a bad thing? Rather, it means, says the Gemara, it seems to me, says the Rashba, the batza, he would cut every single loaf of bread. 2 challahs, he would cut both of them. And that's why it seems like he's acting too hungry. Take what you need. Why are you cutting all the bread? But nonetheless, this is what he would do. So now that means, according to Rashi, what do you have to do when you make with two challahs? Hold two of them when you make the bracha, but only cut one of them for whatever you need for that meal. According to the Rashi, what do you have to do? You actually have to cut both places of bread. Not just collect it, not just hold it for the bracha, but cut them both. So you see a machloket in halacha. What's the actual halacha? Anybody know? Oh, you have to cut both breads? Just hold it. We like Rashi. So let's see. What do you want to ask?
What if me, in my case, I'm allowed to gluten, whatever. He's not allowed to gluten. Let's say tomorrow morning I get married, I have food with the shed,
Yeah.
And then, how do you do it for the Shabbat?
What do you mean?
How do you do the Shabbat meal? For the Shabbat meal bread. There's the bread, let's say.
Oh, because you're gluten free.
Yeah.
You can't get isn't there some breads that you can buy that are gluten free? Like made out of not considered a motzi. So you do it on mizanot?
There's no mizanot.
What do you mean? Oats.
There's oats, but
it's not hamatzi. Not mizanot, hamatzi?
It's mizanot, but you have to enjoy the bread.
You have to eat the bread. The truth is, look, if it's a question of health, then of course the halacha says you don't have to endanger yourself for this. For sure. You're supposed to, but you have to eat it anyway, even if you don't like it. But if it's unhealthy, then chas v'shalom, don't do that. If it's bad for you, But I didn't know. I thought there was mizanot that's even gluten free. Really?
Oat bread. It's not good, and it's really, really expensive. I don't like it.
All right. I remember I have a family member that's gluten free, and when they came to my house, we went to IGN, and in the frozen section there was like these little rolls that were gluten free, and we used to buy them for him when he would come to our house, and he would use that for his. I'm pretty sure he used to make a motzi on those. But I told you also last time that for matzah, there's actually oat matzah you can buy. It's expensive, but you can buy it.
Yeah. My mom bought oat matzah.
Yeah.
And then it was a kosher matzah.
Oi.
Matzah, not kosher.
Oh, no. Anyway, okay, so that's a good question. I don't know. So it says out there like this. You're right. The halacha is we follow Rashi. So you look at top of page 3. We have here from the Shulchan Aruch written by the Alter Rebbe, the same rabbi who wrote the Tanya, the first Rebbe of Chabad. He writes like this: "B'chayiv called Adam l'psoya shtei kikaros." A person is obligated to make the bracha on shtei kikaros shlemus, on 2 whole loaves of bread, which we call Challahs today. Echad anashim, echad nashim. This is true for men and women. The smach lazeh, and this is taken from the pasuk shenemar, as it says, "Loktu Lechem Mishne." They used to collect double portion of the manna. This we saw from the Gemara. Now he says, the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch, the ein tzarich seyivtze mishteyan. He does not actually have to cut off both loaves of bread. You just all you have to do is hold both of them in your hand, and you only cut one of them, like Rashi. The pasuk only says that they collected double portion. It doesn't say that they ate double portion. It says they collected double portion. Now we have to do the same thing. How do we collect double portion of challah? By holding 2 pieces of challah when we make the bracha. The hainu achizas means to hold it. Then he says, you can put the second one down. When you actually cut the first one, and it's enough that you're holding the 2 when you make the bracha ha-moitzi. And that's the halach. Now here's an interesting thing. He said here that both men and women are obligated to have a Lechem Mishne. Does that mean every single person around your table has to have a Lechem Mishne?
No. Oh, yeah, except for me.
So every person has to have 2 Challahs? It's a lot of Challahs. You ever seen people who have 2 Challahs and their wives also have 2 Challahs? He says here men and women also have to. So maybe you have 2 for the husband, 2 for the wife, 2 for the kids. If they're bar mitzvah for sure. You ever seen that? Everybody has 1,000 Challahs around the table?
No.
So some people do that. But actually you don't have to do that. Really? Wow.
She makes 2 big ones.
And then for everybody else? Your mother also has to hold 2 Challahs?
What?
Your mother also has 2 Challahs for herself?
No.
No.
How do you say it? My mom makes 12 Challahs.
Yeah, 2 big Challahs and then small ones for the kids.
The rolls.
The rolls for everybody else.
No, it's not everybody else.
Oh, just to have. Okay, I'm saying over here, he said that even men and women, everybody's obligated to have 2 Challahs. Maybe every single person should hold 2 Challahs. What's the answer?
What's the answer?
Answer is no. it's nice if people have their own challah, but you can have 2 challahs, one for one person for everybody. Just like you can have kiddush, right? And one person makes kiddush for everybody. And I think the Sephardim, right? They don't have everybody make kiddush around the table. Just one person makes kiddush for everybody, right? Because the Sephardim go with, I'll tell you in a second. Sephardim go with this idea that Berov Am Hagat Melech. It's more beautiful for the king when many people are together. So it's more beautiful for Hashem when more people do the mitzvah together. So the Sephardim will dafka, specifically, one person make kiddush for everybody. Others go with another rule in Torah, which is mitzvah boy, yosef b'shluchai. It's better to do the mitzvah yourself rather than have someone do it for you. So the Sephardim say, well, it's better for everybody to do it together. The Ashkenazim say, no, better to do it yourself. So that's what some people do. So in my house, for example, if I have guests, I don't make them make their own kiddush, but I offer certainly if they can make their own kiddush if they want to. But the Sephardim don't do it that way. But now when it comes to the challah, what? I do it for my family. But if I have guests, I offer them make their own kiddush if they want. But the Sephardim don't do that. The Sephardim want the balabait makes kiddush, the owner of the house, like the leader of the house makes kiddush, and everybody else listens and says, I'm going to do it all together. It's just 2 different minhagim. But then when it comes to the challah, it's like this. So 2 Lechem Mishne, or 1 Lechem Mishne, 1 set of 2 breads, of 2 challahs is enough for everybody around the table. Right? So now here's the question about the hamotzi. You say amen when the leader of the house says hamotzi lechem min haaretz. You say amen, right? And because you said amen, you fulfilled your obligation to have 2 challahs because you're responding amen to that person. But now, by the time you get your slice of bread, it could be a minute or 2 later. There's a lot of people around the table, and you're sitting at the end. By the time the challah comes to you, it could be a while later, which means there's a big hefsek, there's a big break between when you said amen to the bracha hamotzi and when you actually eat the bread, right? So do you have to make a bracha or not? Again. So some people say that you don't make a bracha again. As long as you're not speaking, you're not making any actual hefsek. And because you were fulfilling your obligation for Lechem Mishne with the leader of the house, and you said amen to fulfill that obligation, so that amen also covers your bracha hamotzi, and you don't make another bracha when you get your slice of bread. Make sense? Okay, but the Rebbe writes, sorry? Yeah, but that's right. So I'm saying that's one opinion. But the Rebbe writes, what? Yeah. But the Rebbe writes a different way. He says like this. When you say amen to the person who's making the bracha, you have in mind, I'm fulfilling my obligation for Lechem Mishne. He's holding 2 challahs. And by me saying amen, I'm covering my need to have 2 challahs. But then when I get the actual bread a few months later, I make my own bracha hamotzi again. And this time I'm making hamotzi just to eat the bread. So which means like this. There's 2 different parts to the mitzvah of the hamotzi. One is the obligation to hold 2 loaves of bread. And for that, I say amen and listen to the leader, and that's a fulfilled obligation. And I don't have to have my own 2 challahs. And then when I get a slice of bread, I have to make again a bracha hamotzi after saying amen before, just so I can eat the bread. That's how the Rebbe writes to do it. So it's different minhagim, and because of course I'm a Chabad, I follow the Rebbe, that's what I do. Let's say I'm at my parents' home, my father cuts on 2 challahs, I say amen, and I have in mind that I'm fulfilling my obligation to have 2 loaves of bread, but then when I get a slice, I make my own bracha hamotzi just because I have to make a bracha hamotzi before I eat. Clear? Okay, go. Yeah. Because they don't know how to. The main reason is because they don't know how to. So the truth is that Ashkenazim, even if you don't read the Torah out loud, you're supposed to whisper the words of Torah softly. Because you're supposed to read the Torah when you get an aliyah, right? Not so have somebody else do it for you. Because I don't know how to sing it loud and I don't know how to do all the tunes, we let the Baal Korah, the Chazan, do it so everybody else can hear it properly. But really, you're right. The person getting aliyah should. Right? The truth is that the way we do Kriyat Torah is not exactly the way the Gemara writes to do it. This is a little off topic, but it's very interesting. I was once in a little village in Israel, spent Shabbat there, and I went for the service. I went to a Temani shul, a Temani synagogue, and their synagogue was exactly like the Gemara describes it. First of all, if I remember correctly, they didn't have rows. They all sat around in a circle around the wall facing the middle. And then, when it came to Kriyat Torah, it wasn't like we have set 7 aliyahs. They just called a bunch of people. And there was one person who was in charge, and he was like the gabbai, I guess. And every time he would call everybody up, and the person who was called up read, It wasn't like there was a one chazan reading. Every person who got the aliyah read the Torah. And the person in charge would say, okay, stop here, next person. Okay, stop here, next person. And like this, they would have 10 aliyahs, maybe more or less. And besides for that, their reading, their pronunciation of the words was much different than ours, even different than Sephardi. The aleph and ayin were different. No two letters were the same. So aleph and ayin are different because the Sephardim also do that. The proper Sephardim also do aleph and ayin a bit different. Chet and chaf also different. Cha and het. Yeah, right? I don't know how to do it so well, but that's what it is. And vav and vet are different. Vet is ve, and vav is we. So it's wayomer, not vayomer. And then the taf and saf are also different. So for the Ashkenazim, the taf and saf are different because it's taf and saf, se. For the Sephardim, it's taf and taf. It's really the same. But for the Ashkenazim, for the Teimanim, it was taf and thaf. So Shabeth, like this, th, Shabeth. Not Shabbat and not Shabbos. Shabeth. So that's right. And then the gimel, if there's a dot inside the gimel, it's gimel. So it's gimel and gimel. So every single letter was pronounced different. No two letters the same. So listening to them read the Torah was actually very hard because I wasn't familiar with it. Wa and je and th. It took me a while to catch on. I was able to follow along with the Torah reading. Yeah. So it's amazing. It was amazing to watch. Everybody's getting aliyahs. Everybody knew how to read. And every person who read would read in this fancy way, like the real old school, how to really pronounce the Torah. And another thing that I never saw before, which the Gemara says to do, is something called Targum. You ever notice in the Torah there's a Targum Onkelos on the side? Yeah. Right, so you have the actual Torah, the text, and then on the side you have the translation from Onkelos. That translation is Aramaic. Now the Gemara writes that the way to read the Torah is the person who gets the aliyah reads himself, and he stops at the end of every pasuk, and there's somebody else who reads the Targum, so people listening can understand. And that's what they did. One person was called up. He would read. Every person who was called up knew how to read. He would read in this proper pronunciation. He would stop at the end of the pasuk. Somebody else would read the onkelos, the translation, and then he would continue back and forth. Torah reading took much longer than our Torah reading. First of all, they had a bunch of aliyahs, not just 7, because they were, I told you, like the guy in charge, the Rabbi would say, okay, you stop here, next person, okay, next person, 10, 15, 20 aliyahs, I don't know how many there were. And plus, he would stop every single pasuk, and the person would read Targum, read the translation. But it was literally the reading of the Torah exactly as the Gemara describes in Masechta Megillah. Very fascinating to see. Yeah. It was a little town called Kfar Tapuach. It's a village in the settlements called Kfar Tapuach. I think that's where it was. Maybe it was in Shiloh. No, I think it was in Kfar Tapuach when I saw it. It's in the settlement, in the West Bank. West Bank. I think it's in the West Bank.
Was it near like any cities?
I could be mixing up different cities because I went to a few places. I don't remember.
It wasn't like the other side of the settlement, near Gaza.
Maybe it was near Gaza. I don't remember.
Like the strip.
I think maybe it was near Gaza. I don't remember because it's a long time ago. It was before the disengagement. I don't know. It's called Kfar Tapuach. Google it after and tell me. I'm pretty sure it's Kfar Tapuach. Anyway, it's a very fascinating thing. How did we get here? Oh, we're talking about making brachas on your own. Right. So these guys really did it. They made their own bracha on their own. They made Kriyas Torah on their own. But back to Lechem Mishne. So again, one person holds the 2 challahs, and by him having 2 challahs and everybody answering amen, that's how everybody around the table fulfills their obligation to have 2 challahs. Now, when it comes to making the bracha on your own to eat the bread when you get your slice, it's a discussion. Some say you don't make your own bracha hamatzi because you already said amen to answer and to get the Lechem Mishne from the person making the person actually holding the 2 breads. And the Rebbe writes to make your own bracha when you get that slice of bread, even though you listened and said amen to the bracha before. And we learned that even though there's a machlokah between Rashi and Rashba about what you have to do with the 2 loaves, Rashba said you actually have to cut each loaf, each challah. Rashi said you only have to hold the 2 challahs and only cut 1. And we follow who? Rashi. We hold the 2 challahs and you make hamaitzi, and we only cut 1 that you need for the meal. Right? And as I mentioned before, it's important not just to put your hand on the 2 challahs, but actually to hold them 2. That's the proper way to do it, to actually hold it 2. Now, since we're talking about that, I want to add one more halacha that's interesting. You're supposed to, you ever seen people do this? Before they pick up the bread, they make a little mark on the challah? You notice that? So the halacha is like this. When you cut the bread, when you cut your challah bread, you're supposed to cut it in the best possible place. This is a halacha that they learned that the Gemara tells us that they learned in a dream from Menashe, from the king Menashe. Sorry? No, like the part that's like, baked the best. Today our breads are basically equally baked. But back then, I imagine the ovens weren't so amazing, not convection oven where it's equal heat. And some parts of the bread might have come out better than others, right? And you're supposed to cut the challah in the best possible place. You're supposed to cut the bread in the best place. Now, to find the best place takes some time. You have to examine the challah and find where's the best spot. Now, if you make the bracha and then you cut the challah, there's going to be a hefsek, there's going to be a break. From your bracha until you actually cut the loaf in the right spot, there's going to be a break. So how do you avoid the break? Before you make the bracha, you check the challah to find the best spot. You mark the spot with a little slice. Then you make the bracha. And now when you make the bracha, you already know where to cut because you have that slice. Right? And that's why you make the slice before you make the bracha. But when you cut the actual challah, you're not supposed to cut it in the exact spot on Shabbos. You're not supposed to cut the exact spot where you make the slice. Because then it comes into a problem of other problems on Shabbos. Of like marking on Shabbos you're not supposed to do. So this is what you do. You take the challah, you find the best spot, make a mark, pick both of them up, you put the knife down, pick both of them up, make the bracha al-moitzi. Put one down, take the knife, and cut right next to the spot where you made that mark. And then you dip your challah in the salt, eat it, and then you cut it up for everybody else, and the other people who get it, if you're following the Rebbe, make their own bracha al-moitzi. Clear? Okay. Yes? What are you going to say? Clear?
Yeah, but who takes a good part?
Sorry?
Who takes a good part?
The person who makes the bracha, the person who's holding the bread. Because you're supposed to be eating the part that you cut. There's also other things. Like, for example, you're supposed to cut half of it and rip it off. Some people, the Spartan actually break the challah, right? You don't actually cut it, right?
So, my dad, yes.
Some break, some cut, and some do both. Cut partially and then break the rest.
The majority doesn't do that.
Yeah, so I cut the slice and then I break the slice in half and eat it and dip and eat. So there's all those other things. Okay. There's all kinds of other halachas around it, but this is the basic idea. Okay, so now we get to an interesting halacha to tell you how important the Lechem Mishne is, the idea of having 2 loaves of bread. And I think we're going to conclude with this. Let's see how long this is. Maybe we'll do the next part also. Okay, let's see. Let's do one more piece here. Okay, so this comes from the Taz. Taz is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch writes that a person who has, thank God today we don't have these problems. But back in the day, people had problems of budgeting down to the last dollar. Yeah. Right? And sometimes the Shulchan Aruch discusses situations where you don't have enough money to do one mitzvah. You have 2 mitzvahs in front of you, you only have enough money for 1 mitzvah. So what do? So here, the Shulchan Aruch is discussing a person who only has enough money to either buy Hanukkah candles or to buy wine for Kiddush. So it says the halacha you buy, not for Kiddush, but you actually spend the money on the Hanukkah candles. Now the Taz explains why. You see? So it's page 4 on the left side. Or Hanukkah you don't have to have. You have to have the candles. Right? The mitzvah is not to have a candelabra. So you put it on the table. It doesn't have to be in a fancy thing for the mitzvah. We do that because we can afford it. Thank God we can afford these things, and it's nice to do it. But if you have no money and you're coming down to buying just candles or wine, and you can choose either 1 cup of wine for Kiddush or candles for menorah, you're not talking about someone who has a fancy Hanukkah. You're talking about someone who's putting the candles on the table just to fulfill the mitzvah. Right? So explains the Taz, comment on the Shulchan Aruch. You see on page 4 on the left-hand side. It's in Rashi letters. I hope you can follow along. So first he quotes the Shulchan Aruch, which says, Yikna l'nei Chanukah. Buy the candles for your menorah better than wine for Kiddush. So Kosav Haran. The Ran writes, another Sephardic teacher is Rabbi Ran. Ibn Nissim di Gurunda, I think. Or Jurganada. No, it's a Sephardic leader, I don't remember exactly. Okay. Ubeit Yosef and the Beit Yosef writes like this. Afagav the Kiddush Daraisa, even though Kiddush is a biblical commandment, right? Yeah. The Ner Chanukah D'Rabbanan. And lighting Hanukkah candles is biblical? No, it's D'Rabbanan, right? Because the Hanukkah story happens after the Torah is already over, right? It happens 1,000 years after the Torah is over almost. So the lighting the menorah is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's a mitzvah from the rabbis, it's not a mitzvah from the Torah. So seemingly, like you were saying, Kiddush is more important because Kiddush is d'oraita, is a biblical commandment. At least Kiddush Friday night for sure is biblical commandment, right? So why is it that you buy menorah rather than Kiddush, right? Good question. So explains the Beit Yosef and Iran, Kivan de Efsher Lekadosh Alapas, because if you wanted to, you can make Kiddush using bread. So, and therefore, Shem L'ner Chanukah Adif, therefore the menorah comes first. So why is it that you buy the menorah rather than the wine? Because it's true Kiddush is something you have to do from the Torah, but you don't have to make Kiddush on wine. Oil, whatever. So you're choosing between a cup of oil for your menorah or a cup of wine for your Kiddush. Says the halacha, buy a cup of oil for Kiddush. Why? Because buy a cup of oil for your menorah. Why? Because Kiddush, it's true, it's a biblical commandment. You have to make Kiddush, but you don't need the wine. If you want, you could do it with what? With bread. Yep.
Then on Saturday, you could do it.
Yeah, that's for sure true. Now, if that's the case, says that it tells like this. Olafizah, based on this, in Ein Lai Pas, if he doesn't have any bread, and he has a choice, buy oil from menorah or buy bread. It's pas adif, then you have to buy the bread. Why? Because you have to make Kiddush, and Kiddush is biblical. Kiddush is more important than menorah, because Kiddush is biblical, and menorah is d'Rabbanan, 1 second. Which means really the choice should be first Kiddush, and then menorah. But because you can make Kiddush on bread, therefore we say don't buy the wine, buy the bread. But what if my choice is bread and oil? Then I have to take the bread because bread is biblical. Following? Say it again.
You can't use anything else but bread, right?
For Kiddush?
No, for
For Lechem Mishne. In theory, you could do. What are you asking for? For the 2 loaves of bread, or for?
Yeah, 2 loaves of bread.
In theory, you can use mazonos, but bread it's supposed to be on motzi.
So if you already have, let's say, wine, let's say last week.
Yeah.
Have wine from last week, but you don't have bread and you don't have candles.
So that's a good question. The Taz is going to get to that. What if I already have wine? Now it's a question of oil or challah. We're going to learn soon what the Taz says. Let's see. Let's see. So for now we know, according to the Taz, that if you have only a choice between oil and bread for Kiddush, buy bread for Kiddush rather than oil for menorah, because bread for Kiddush is d'oraita, it's biblical. What? Because of what? Because of what? Why is the bread biblical? No. Why? Birchot Hamazon is only if you eat bread. It's not a biblical commandment to eat bread so you can have Birchot Hamazon. It's only if you have bread, you have a biblical commandment to make a Birchot Hamazon. But why is it a biblical commandment to actually have bread? Because of the Lechem Mishne, we're learning it, and that's where the Taz is going to go. But let's see that first. That's why we're learning this Taz now. So let's see. Ready? Taz is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. 2 days of.
What's the Taz called?
Oh, let's get there. Let's read it.
What's his whole name?
Oh, I don't remember, but I know he's the son-in-law of the Bach. Who's the Bach? It's the Bayit Chadash, the commentary on the Torah. I don't remember the names. Yeah, just go through the door. You'll see it on the left.
Go around.
Okay, so let's see.
It's not. Look, it's not.
You can go through here.
Go around.
Aval, but Harambam Kosav Khan, the Rambam writes over here like this. The Ner Chadek of Kiddush Hayom, that Chanukah and making Kiddush during the day. Kiddush during the day is biblical or rabbinic? Rabbinic. At night, it's d'oraita, because at night, d'oraita, you're supposed to make a blessing to welcome the Shabbos. But the Rabbanon, because the Pasuk says, Zachar Yom Shabbos HaKacha, you have to remember, you have to mention the Shabbos to make it holy. So you actually have to mention it and make a blessing. But during the day, you already made the bracha on Kiddush at night. During the day, it's not d'oraita, it's the Rabbanon. Right? So let's walk this through. Let's look at this for a second. When you make Kiddush at night, how many brachas do you make?
If I make Kiddush at night,
2. Hagafen on the wine. Yeah. And the other one is Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbat. You're making a blessing over Shabbat. But how many blessings do you make when you make Kiddush by day? Only Hagafen. Yeah. Right? So why are you making Kiddush by day if there's no real bracha? So our sages explain like this, because it's true that Kiddush at night is more important than Kiddush by day, because Kiddush at night is the Raita. But which meal is more important, night or day? If I only had enough money for one meal, should I spend it on day or night?
Well, obviously that's
Day. The answer is day. The day meal is more important than the night meal. So now we have two things. The Kiddush at night is more important, but the meal at day is more important. So because the meal at day is more important, the Chachamim said like this. It's almost disrespectful to the day meal if you don't make a Kiddush. You made Kiddush last night.
Why is it more important?
Because this is what it is. Because by the enjoyment of Shabbat is more important by day than by night. The meal of Shabbat is more important by day. Which means like this. You're making Kiddush at night, which is more important. So the day meal feels left out. I'm the more important meal, and yet you're not making Kiddush for me. So we make a Kiddush by day. But so the day Kiddush is not really a mitzvah for Kiddush. It's only a rabbinic thing just to cover the day meal. And therefore the Rambam says, if you have to choose between Kiddush during the day or Hanukkah candles, what do you choose? Hanukkah candles, because they're both Rabbanan, they're both equal. When it comes to Kiddush at night, it's a question of Daraita, it's biblical. But Kiddush by the day is rabbinic. And therefore if the choice is Hanukkah candles or Kiddush by day, choose Hanukkah candles. I'm talking about the Kiddush now. We're talking about the Kiddush. 1 second. What?
Oh, you're not talking about the food.
Yeah, we're talking about the Kiddush.
But if it's
1 second, we'll get to that when you have about the food. We're talking about the Kiddush itself. Right? So the Rambam writes that if you have a choice between Hanukkah candles or Kiddush by day, take Hanukkah candles because they're both equally the Rabbanan, they're both equally rabbinic, but the Hanukkah candles is an extra value because the Hanukkah candles has, Persume Nisar has this publicizing of the miracle. So because it has that extra element, choose the Hanukkah candles rather than Kiddush by day. Then says the Taz, in Cain, if so, based on the Rambam, afilu ein loy pas, even if he has no bread, ner Hanukkah aduf, Hanukkah candles are better. Why? Because even by day, if you're making Kiddush on bread, it's also only rabbinic. You following? With me? So it comes out like this. Right now at this point, it would seem like this. If my choice is Hanukkah candles versus wine for Friday night, what do I buy? Hanukkah candles. Why? Because I can make Kiddush on bread. If my choice is Hanukkah candles or bread, do bread because bread is Kiddush and Kiddush is the Raita. But what if it's not a question of the night Kiddush is the Raita? It's a question of Hanukkah candles versus bread during the day. Take Hanukkah candles because even though they're both Rabbanan, even though they're both rabbinic, you still choose the Hanukkah candles because the Hanukkah candles has publicizing the miracle, which is an extra value.
Yeah,
but now, sorry?
The bread also has an extra value.
What's that?
Which is the
No, but the Birchat HaMazon is not an obligation that you have to make Birchat HaMazon. It's only if you eat. So there's no obligation to go get bread so you can make Birchat HaMazon. Right? So that's real right now. But now, says the Taz like this. Now we're getting to your point. Avol, so if you go down to the middle of the page, there's a dot. And the last word in the line is Avol. Middle of Taz on page 4. Avol, but Nida, it seems to me, says the Taz, Dela Inyan pas, when it comes to bread, the Kula Alma pas kaidim. You always have to buy bread first. So till now we were making the whole thing. If you're buying wine, then take olive oil better for your menorah because you can make Kiddush on bread. But if it's a question of bread versus oil, it depends. Is it day Kiddush, which is only rabbinic, then buy the oil? Or is it night Kiddush, which is biblical, and therefore buy the oil? Therefore buy the bread, because it's biblical. Now he says the Taz, no. Sorry? Havdalah is not rabbinic, not biblical. But it is Avobat Nida. It seems to me like this. The Indian pas when it comes to bread, the Kula Alma pas kaidim. Everybody agrees bread comes before buying Hanukkah candles. Even if you have Kiddush, you don't have Kiddush, doesn't matter. Till now, he was making a question about is your bread needed for Kiddush, and that was the question to decide whether you're choosing oil or bread. Following? If you need your bread for a biblical Kiddush, then bread comes first. But if your bread is for Shabbat day and it's only a rabbinic Kiddush, then choose the oil. No, it's a question of what you have to buy. It's Erev Shabbat, you have a choice. Which one should you buy? Right? So now, what? So according to the Rambam, we said before, because the meal by day, the day meal, is the Kiddush by day meal is only rabbinic, and the Hanukkah candles, also rabbinic, so they're both equal, but the Hanukkah candles has an extra value of publicizing the miracle. So choose Hanukkah candles rather than choosing bread. But now it says the Taz, no. In my opinion, no matter what, you always buy bread before Hanukkah candles. Why? Why?
It makes it meal.
Say again?
You can't make a meal without that.
Let's see. The Masha Kasa Bisimin Reishainal, that which the Shulchan Aruch wrote the Kiddush, that buying Kiddush is more important than buying the needs of your meal. If you have a choice, buy a slice of fish or buy a cup of wine for Kiddush. Answer, buy a cup of wine. It seems the Hainu Shar Tzarech Chasuda, this is for other things, going to have shilin, fish, meat, other things. The Keruba Gemara Bava Perek Abisachim Kavod Yom, Aval, but Hapas the bread, the Lechem Mishne, which is an obligation of what? Not just an obligation to eat your meal, and not just an obligation of a Kiddush, but what obligation comes along with the bread? We're learning about it now. Lechem Mishne, to have 2 loaves. Who kodim le'ami Kiddush? So it's a question of buying 2 loaves for Lechem Mishne or wine. Which one comes first? Lechem Mishne. Why? You have to have 2 breads. I don't know. But 1 second, why? He says the Taz like this. The Lechem Mishne, eating Lechem Mishne is L'kula alma, everybody agrees, de'oraita. According to the Taz, eating and not eating, but having 2 loaves of bread when you make the bracha on your Shabbos meal is not a rabbinic thing, but actually a de'oraita, a biblical commandment. Yeah. And he quotes the Gemara we learned before. The Gemara of Abba called Kisvik Tiksiv, Lechem Mishne. Rabbi Abba said in our Gemara we learned before that how do we know to have 2 loaves of bread? Because the pasuk says Lechem Mishne, they took a double portion. So because the Gemara quotes a pasuk, it means it's de'oraita, biblical. I want you to look at something. Now let's go back to page 3. Top of the page. When we looked out there in page 3, the Alter wrote, "Chayv adam l'tzayah shtei kekar shleimus." A person has to make a bracha holding 2 loaves of bread. Echad anashim, both men, echad nashim, and women. But what's the next words there? Last word on the top line. V'samach lezeh. What does samach lezeh mean? Page 3. Samach, that's for the sin. Samach means they relied on the verse which says, "Loktu lechem mishne," they collect a double portion. What does that mean when he says rely on them? Not that it's a biblical commandment. It's a rabbinic commandment. But the rabbinic commandment, they attached it to a pasuk. You know what asmach means? Asmach means like this. Sometimes the sages would come up with an idea, but they would find a pasuk which supports what they're saying. Not because the pasuk actually means you should do what they're saying to do, but they're finding a support. That's what samach lezeh means. So according to the Alter Rebbe, is it a biblical thing to have Lechem Mishne? Doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's a samach lezeh. They relied on the pasuk, but really it's rabbinic. But what does the Taz say? Is it rabbinic or not? What does the Taz say at the bottom here? The Lechem Mishne l'kula alma de'oraita. According to the Lechem Mishne, it's actually biblical. According to the Taz, Lechem Mishne is actually biblical. Right? But then he adds, V'shalosh sedot, eating 3 meals, gam kein de'oraita, is also biblical. Upas ba'inon, you have to have bread. If so, kol shkein shu kadum l'chanukah, en elam derbanon ken yerli. So according to the Taz, having Lechem Mishne is so important that it comes even before lighting the menorah. And if my choice was Lechem Mishne or menorah, choose Lechem Mishne. And if my choice was Kiddush or Lechem Mishne, choose Lechem Mishne. Because according to the Taz, it's actually de'oraita. So here we see, we're going to stop over here. Tomorrow we're going to learn a little bit more about this. But here we see how deeply important having the 2 loaves of bread is. Right?
Yeah.
Should we do a little recap?
Sure.
Okay, so quickly. What do you have to do with the Lechem Mishne? What do you have to do with the 2 loaves of bread?
Rashi says you have to
hold it during the bracha, and then only cut 1 according to Rashi. Rashba said you have to do what? You have to cut both. The halacha is you only have to cut 1. Is having 2 loaves of bread is deraita or derabanan? According to the Taz, it's deraita, and according to Alter Rebbe said it's only a smach deraita. It's only they're relying on the pasuk, it's actually derabanan. And if you're going to say it's deraita, that means that it comes before even Hanukkah candles or anything else. Very beautiful. Okay, have a wonderful day, and we'll continue babbling tomorrow.